In today's world, different kinds of inventions have found their ways into our lives. Some of them started off as bizarre ideas, but ultimately they became brilliant creations that made life more exciting and easier for the most part. These are 14 of the most bizarre but brilliant invention stories you want to sit back and listen to, with number 13 being the most bizarre idea. A few invention stories are as impressively bizarre as that of the Snuggie, a blanket with sleeves that somehow became a billion-dollar cultural phenomenon. At first glance, it looked like a joke. In fact, many people thought it was a joke. Blankets are cozy, sure, but if you try to use a phone, eat snacks, or change the channel, suddenly your arms are exposed to cold air. Robes have sleeves, but they tie in front and aren't ideal for couch lounging. It was a tiny inconvenience that no one thought to solve until someone did. The idea of a blanket with sleeves predates the Snuggie by at least a decade. In the late 1990s, a man named Gary Clegg, a college student in Maine, invented something called the Slanket. It began as a dorm room experiment. Gary's room was freezing, and he wanted to keep warm while using the remote, so his mother sewed a blanket with sleeves, and voila, the first proto-Snuggie was born. Clegg would go on to launch the Slanket in 2003, but it never gained much traction beyond novelty catalogs and niche online stores. And then in 2008, an entirely different team swooped in, and they had something that Gary didn't. They had infomercial firepower. The Snuggie as we know it was launched by All Star Products Group, a company known for pushing quirky, as seen on TV items. They specialized in taking odd, niche products and selling them to the masses using over-the-top late-night commercials. The Snuggie ad was instantly iconic and hilariously strange. Imagine a family in a dark living room, miserably cold under regular blankets, and suddenly they slip on Snuggies and become warm, liberated, and able to read books, snack on popcorn, and even cheer at sports games while staying warm. The commercial featured people walking around in them like monks at a pep rally. It looked ridiculous and people laughed, and that was the key to its success. The Snuggie launched in late 2008, and within months, it had become a full-blown cultural meme. Late-night hosts roasted it, comedians mocked it, Jon Stewart called it a robe that's backwards. But as expected, every joke made it more popular. So people started buying Snuggies, ironically, for white elephant gift exchanges, college dorm rooms, and parties. Then others bought them unironically because, well, they actually worked. You could stay warm and still scroll your phone or eat nachos. Snuggie sales exploded. By the end of 2009, over 20 million Snuggies had been sold. That's more units than many best-selling books or albums. The company reportedly made over $500 million from this absurd idea. And in the end, the Snuggie didn't just warm bodies, it warmed hearts and living rooms around the world and made its company millions of dollars. And speaking of profits, this next invention was given out for free to the public, even though it had the potential to make its owners billions in royalty fees. The QR code invention is one modern-day miracle that has changed the technological world for good, and its conception and invention is quite the tale.
QR の普及のおかげでやっぱり社会は変わったんじゃないかなと。
はい、ありますね。
今だとチベットの奥地にもあるぐらいですから。
そうだね。
ショッピングお会計言われる。何でもお好きなものを。はい。ちょっとお待ちいただくんでは。
ですね、当初はやっぱり、自分なりにもいいものができたという感触があったんで、産業的にはうまくいくと思ってたんですけども、一般市民がこう読むまでっていうのは全然想像もできなかったし、これで今申し訳ないけど、お金のやり取りをすると。
In today's digital era, QR codes are everywhere. From restaurant menus and even tickets to business cards and even gravestones. But what if I told you that this groundbreaking invention started out from an idea gotten from an old Chinese board strategy game? To understand the birth of QR codes, you must go back to the 1990s in Japan. At the time, most industries, especially manufacturing and retail, relied on barcodes to track products. You know, the classic black and white stripes had become standard on everything from cereal boxes to shipping crates. But in the fast-paced world of car manufacturing, traditional barcodes were falling short. This was especially true to Denso Wave, a subsidiary of the Toyota Group that made barcode scanners and factory automation equipment. In car factories, speed and precision were everything. Workers had to scan dozens, sometimes hundreds of parts in a very short time. But conventional barcodes could only hold about 20 alphanumeric characters, and scanners needed a clear line of sight to read them. And that meant workers had to manually align and scan every code, slowing down production. And if a label got even slightly damaged, the scanner failed. Denso Wave knew they needed something different. And their answer came in the form of Masahiro Hara, a quiet, puzzle-loving engineer with an unusual hobby that would soon influence technology forever. Masahiro Hara was really a board game fanatic. Among all his games he loved the one known as Go more than the others. Go is an ancient Chinese game that uses a simple grid and black and white stones to play out deeply strategic battles. A fun fact about this game is that it's often said that it has more possible board positions than atoms in the universe. Go taught Hara two things: how to find patterns in grids and how to think several steps ahead. As he stared at the Go board one day in 1992, an idea began to form. What if a barcode didn't have to be just one-dimensional? What if it expanded in two directions, both horizontally and vertically? By imagining a 2D matrix as a square pattern instead of just lines, he could store far more information in a much smaller space. Not just 20 characters, but hundreds. And by strategically placing symbols in corners, as inspired by the placement of Go stones, the scanner could instantly locate the code's orientation. It wouldn't matter if it was upside down, sideways, or partially obscured. The scanner would still find its way. He knew instantly that it was going to be a hit, but there were still lots of people to convince. When Hara presented the idea to his team, there were mixed reactions. A two-dimensional barcode that looked like a checkerboard? It sounded like science fiction or just a waste of company time and resources. Hara pressed on, building prototypes and testing them. He called it the Quick Response Code, or QR code, because it could be scanned instantly. The real magic was how it worked. Unlike traditional barcodes that relied on one long line of data, QR codes use a technique called Reed-Solomon error correction. That meant a QR code could be damaged up to 30% and still work perfectly. To prove this, Hara famously drew a QR code, cut a chunk out of it, and scanned the rest. And it worked. And that blew everyone's mind. Suddenly, what looked like a goofy chessboard on paper became the most resilient, versatile tracking system they'd ever seen. But the drama still wasn't over. In 1994, Denso Wave finalized the QR code. Normally, a company would patent a breakthrough like this and charge the world to use it. But Denso Wave made a strange and counterintuitive decision. They made it for free. Why? Because they were paranoid. They feared that if the QR code became proprietary, no one would adopt it, and it would fade into obscurity. So they released the code to the public without royalties, while still protecting it from misuse with some limited patents. This decision made the QR code the Wild West of digital innovation. People started using it for all kinds of bizarre purposes, encoding secret messages, hiding discount codes and graffiti, and even linking to online memes. A Japanese tombstone company started offering QR codes on grave markers that, when scanned, would display a photo album of the deceased. Meanwhile, in Germany, an artist tattooed a working QR code on his chest, which linked to a video of the tattoo being made. What began as a solution to car part tracking quickly became a digital Rorschach test, reflecting the creativity and weirdness of human society. By the early 2000s, QR codes had spread across Asia, but were still struggling to find footing in the West. Then came the smartphone revolution, and everything changed. phones got better cameras and apps that could scan QR codes became more common. Still, the general public wasn't sold. QR codes had a bad reputation in the US, too nerdy, too clunky, and often linked to spammy websites. And for a while, it looked like QR codes would die a quiet death outside Japan. But 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic brought it back to the limelight. Suddenly, contactless interaction became essential. Restaurants replaced menus with QR codes. Airlines replaced boarding passes. Governments used them for vaccine tracking. And retailers used them for mobile payments. It was as if a decades-old invention had finally found its moment. In a strange twist of fate, the invention originally designed to speed up car assembly lines became the world's go-to method for safe and touchless communication. Today, Masahiro Hara's creation has taken on a life of its own. Over 20 billion QR codes are scanned every year. They're on delivery trucks, movie posters, and crypto wallets. In China, people pay for groceries with them. In Kenya, QR codes are being used to track livestock vaccinations. Yet few know how the quirky story behind the black and white matrix that made it all possible, a story of go-boards, paranoid generosity, and a quiet engineer who reimagined the future by staring at an ancient game. When asked in later interviews how he felt about his creation becoming global, Hara simply smiled and said, "I just wanted to make people's jobs easier." And he did that and much, much more. Our next bizarre invention is named after a 10th century Viking king, but has managed to become part of everyday society. Yes, the name Bluetooth traces back to a 10th century Viking king, Harald Bluetooth Gormson of Denmark, who united warring tribes in Scandinavia under one crown. He had a dead tooth that looked blue, hence the nickname. Anyways, fast forward to the 1990s, when a group of engineers from Intel, Ericsson, and Nokia were working on a way to unify wireless communication standards across devices. One of them, Jim Kardak, a history buff, thought the analogy of uniting devices the way Harold united kingdoms was perfect. Everyone thought it was a temporary code name, a nerdy placeholder, until marketing came up with something cooler, but they never did. So now, the world's most widely used wireless audio technology is named after a Viking with dental issues. Back in the late 1990s, wireless audio wasn't exactly in demand. The few wireless headphones that existed relied on infrared or radio signals, and they were awful. You had to stand still, point your head at a base station like a remote control, and hope it didn't pick up signals from passing taxis. Then came Bluetooth 1.0, developed as a way for phones and other devices to talk to each other wirelessly. It was clunky, slow, and ironically used more power than the wired devices. The first Bluetooth headset, released in 2000 by Ericsson, looked like something out of Star Trek, a chunky piece of plastic jutting out of your ear, blinking a blue light. Most people laughed at it. It wasn't helped by the fact that early users looked like they were talking to themselves in public, sparking a wave of concern from bystanders who thought that these people were unstable or possessed. Despite the weird looks, Bluetooth headsets began popping up among business people and techies. For a while, they became a status symbol in the early 2000s.
Headphones we're going to be introducing. Now you can say, well, why do you need headphones? Headphones come with the Nano. Well, these headphones have something on the cable that we borrowed from phones. And it's this little thing that sits on the cable that allows you to pause and play your music. And if you double click it twice, it goes to the next song. And if you triple click it, it goes back to the previous song.
But for music lovers, Bluetooth was a joke. The sound quality was terrible, the connection dropped constantly, and the latency made watching videos a nightmare. Manufacturers tried to improve things, but the technology was always a step behind. Plus, battery life was miserable. Some early Bluetooth headphones died after 2 hours of use, barely enough for a short flight or a long playlist. Most people just stuck with wired headphones. Tangled cables were annoying, sure, but at least the music sounded good. Then in 2016, something happened that changed everything. Apple killed the headphone jack. With the launch of the iPhone 7, Apple removed the traditional 3.5mm headphone port, forcing users to either buy a dongle or go wireless. It was a bold, controversial, and to many, a stupid move. The internet exploded with anger. Memes mocked Apple. YouTubers smashed iPhones in protest. But Apple wasn't dumb. Alongside the headphone jack funeral came the release of AirPods. At first glance, they looked like tiny electric toothbrush heads sticking out of your ears. People laughed. They fell out easily. They got lost in toilets. One woman even swallowed one in her sleep. AirPods weren't just Bluetooth headphones. They were smart. They paired instantly, paused music when you moved them, and they could talk to Siri. And unlike previous attempts, they actually had decent sound quality and good battery life. Suddenly, the entire world wanted to go wireless. What was once a nerdy niche accessory became the default. With Apple leading the way, other companies jumped on board. Samsung, Sony, Bose, JBL, and dozens of new brands released their own Bluetooth headphones. Designs got sleeker, batteries last longer, and Bluetooth technology improved drastically with the introduction of Bluetooth 5.0, reducing lag and increasing range. Then came true wireless earbuds, not just wireless from your headphone, but from each other. No cords at all, just two tiny pieces nestled in your ears, like techie earrings with surround sound. By 2022, Bluetooth headphones outsold wired headphones globally. The wireless revolution was complete. Bluetooth headphones, for all their convenience, had led to some truly strange moments. AirPod theft became a thing. Because they were tiny and trendy, they were easy to lose and easy to steal, especially at schools and gyms. People began wearing them constantly, not even listening to music, just to avoid talking to others in public. Today, we've gone beyond earbuds. Companies are developing bone conduction headphones that send sound through your skull. Others are working on earbuds that translates languages in real time, like something out of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And yes, Elon Musk's Neuralink project has people wondering when we'll ditch earbuds altogether and stream music straight into our brains.
Welcome to the Neuralink presentation. This is an update for the progress of the Neuralink team. It's been an incredible amount of progress. This is, we're going to start off high level, generally describing what Neuralink's doing. And then we're going to have a very deep technical dive so you can actually get an understanding of what exactly we're doing at a granular level and what we can do to enhance human capabilities and ultimately build a great future for humanity.
Still, Bluetooth headphones remain the most universal symbol of the wireless age, one that started with blinking blue lights, biking teeth, and tech nerds talking to themselves in elevators. This invention changed how we viewed technological devices, but our next invention raised questions about innovation, hygiene, and parenting all at the same time. Today, smartwatches are sleek, futuristic accessories strapped to millions of wrists. They monitor your heartbeat, track your sleep, answer texts, and even detect if you're falling down the stairs. But to truly understand how far it has come as an invention, we have to go back to the 1970s. When digital watches were just becoming cool. Before then, watches were analog gears, ticking hands, and tiny batteries. But then came the Pulsar, a gold-plated LED watch released in 1972 for the princely sum of $2,100, which is more than $13,000 in today's money. But innovation didn't stop there. In 1975, Casio released the Casiotron. A few years later, the Databank series, watches that could store phone numbers and do math on the fly. These devices were bulky, clunky, and completely irresistible to nerds, business types, and children of the 80s. If you had one in school, you were either the coolest or the weirdest kid in class, or both. These early gadgets weren't called smartwatches, but they sparked the idea, making people ask the question of what if your watch could do more than just tell time? In the 1940s, the comic strip detective Dick Tracy was pictured wearing a two-way wrist radio, essentially a phone and radio on his wrist. It was pure science fiction. Then, in 1982, Seiko made fiction with the Seiko TV Watch, a wristwatch that could receive television broadcasts. It had a tiny screen and required a wired receiver box you could carry in your pocket. Ridiculous? Yes. But real? Also yes. It was even worn by Roger Moore's James Bond in Octopussy, cementing its place in bizarre gadget history. As computers shrank and PDAs or personal digital assistants became popular in the 90s, companies started asking, what if we put this stuff on your wrist? That's when the Reputer came in. Released in Japan in 1998, it was a full-blown mini-computer watch with a joystick and keyboard. Yes, a watch with a joystick. You could write memos and play games, assuming you had fingernails like chopsticks. These watches were more proof of concept than practical devices. Most people weren't ready to squint at a 1-inch screen or charge their watch every day. But finally, an unlikely player who would make wristwatch tech a national conversation. In 2004, Microsoft, yes, Microsoft, launched the Spot Watch, short for Smart Personal Object Technology. It was bizarre and overly ambitious. Spot watches connected to FM radio waves to deliver weather, news, and stock prices. No phone needed. You couldn't reply to messages or browse the web. It was like a wrist-based page in a world that had already moved on to BlackBerries. The watches were big, clunky, and expensive, and worst of all, you had to pay a yearly subscription for the radio service. Needless to say, Spot flopped. By 2008, Microsoft quietly pulled the plug. But the run gave the idea the exposure it needed on the global stage. While tech giants fumbled, a college kid named Eric Mijakovsky launched one of the most unlikely Kickstarter successes in history. In 2012, he introduced the Pebble Watch, a sleek e-paper smartwatch that could show notifications, track fitness, and run simple apps, all while lasting 7 days on one charge. It wasn't flashy, but it worked. Mijakovsky asked for $100,000 to fund the Pebble. He raised over $10 million, breaking crowdfunding records. Pebble proved people wanted smartwatches. They just didn't want them clunky, glitchy, or subscription-based. And suddenly, the race was on. In 2015, Apple joined the game with the Apple Watch. Critics mocked it at first. Who needs this, they asked. But within a year, Apple Watch outsold every Swiss watch brand combined.
And I am so proud to share it with you this morning. It is the next chapter in Apple's story. And here it is.
The Apple Watch wasn't just a phone companion. It was a health monitor, payment solution, workout tracker, and stylish flex piece all in one. With seamless integration into the iPhone ecosystem and constant updates, it became the smartwatch. Soon, competitors like Samsung, Garmin, Fitbit, and Huawei flooded the market with their own takes. Some focused on fitness, others on battery life. There were luxury editions with diamond bezels and fitness versions that could detect irregular heartbeats or stress levels. The wrist had officially become prime tech real estate. What began as a digital timepiece has now become a health guardian. Modern smartwatches can detect heart arrhythmias, measure blood oxygen, warn you of a fall detection, and even notify emergency services if you collapse. they can nudge you to stand up, breathe deeply, or wash your hands longer. Some watches even monitor stress levels and skin temperature, helping detect illness before symptoms show. In 2021, a man in the UK credited his Apple Watch with saving his life after it alerted him to dangerously low oxygen levels that he had COVID-19 and didn't know it yet. The smartwatch was once a nerdy punchline, a useless wrist gadget for the tech-obsessed, but today it's a practical, powerful tool that blends fashion, function, and science. The smartwatch has become a very useful device in our world today, but our next invention still has a lot of questions to answer about its usefulness to society. Imagine stepping into a lavish 17th century French palace, complete with chandeliers, powdered wigs, and a bowl you're supposed to sit on after using the bathroom. That, my friends, is the bidet, a seemingly odd, often misunderstood contraption that has survived royal scandals, social taboos, and cultural confusion for over 300 years. The word bidet comes from the French word for pony. Why? Because when you straddle the original bidet, it supposedly resembled riding a small horse. Invented in the late 1600s France, the earliest bidets were wooden basins filled with water. Aristocrats would squat or sit over them using a chamber pot. Essentially, it was an early hygiene device, a bottom bath before toilet paper was a thing. But here's where it gets weird. Early bidets were often found in bedrooms, not bathrooms, which didn't exist yet in most homes. It wasn't unusual to see one next to a nightstand or a writing desk, like a very fancy potty pony. Even stranger, bidets quickly became associated with women, especially among France's courtesans. The devices were not only used for cleaning after sex, but also for contraception, using herbal rinses. And that reputation would follow the bidet for centuries. By the 18th century, bidets had become a symbol of upper-class refinement, but also something slightly scandalous. Because of their association with women, intimacy, and post-coital cleanup, bidets took on a sensual and sometimes immoral reputation. While common in Europe, they were rarely discussed in polite company. In Victorian England, they were seen as improper or even indecent, especially in puritanical circles. When indoor plumbing became widespread in the 19th century, many bidets were quietly left out of English-speaking homes, especially in America. Fast forward to the early 1900s, Italian inventors began upgrading the bidet, adding ceramic plumbing, drainage systems, and eventually water pressure control. In 1928, an American plumbing company called Kohler even developed an electric bidet prototype, but it flopped in the US. Why? Because by then, Americans had fully embraced toilet paper as the clean, modern, and proper way to wipe. Plus, the lingering perception of the bidet as European, feminine, and sexually suggestive was way too much for puritanical America. And things got even weirder during World War II. American soldiers stationed in Europe and Japan noticed bidets were commonly found in brothels. When they returned home, they wrongly assumed that bidets were a tool used exclusively by sex workers, further cementing the stigma. And as a result, while Europe, Japan, and the Middle East normalized bidet use, the United States actively avoided it. If the French invented the bidet and the Italians refined it, then the Japanese supercharged it with technology and a whole lot of weirdness. In 1980, Japan's Toto Corporation released the Washlet, an electronic toilet seat with built-in bidet spray, seat warming, deodorizer, and air dryer. It was marketed as the clean technology of the future. Today, over 80% of Japanese households have a washlet or similar high-tech toilet. Japanese commercials for bidet toilets often featured animated buttocks, catchy jingles, and mascots shaped like water droplets. One campaign even featured a robotic toilet that bowed politely. The cultural embrace of cleanliness, modesty, and gadgetry made Japan the global leader in bidet innovation, turning bathroom time into an oddly delightful experience. For decades, bidets remained a niche in the US punchline in sitcoms, a mystery to guests in European hotels, and a curiosity among travelers. When the COVID-19 pandemic sparked global panic buying, shelves were wiped clean of toilet paper, Suddenly, Americans began Googling, "What is a bidet?" in record numbers. Bidet companies like Tushy, BioBidet, and Brondell saw sales skyrocket. What had once been a taboo product now became a practical, eco-friendly solution. Social media influencers and tech reviewers jumped on the trend, calling bidets life-changing. Even Howard Stern, Joe Rogan, and Oprah Winfrey publicly endorsed them. What began as a horse-named basin for noble butts became a global symbol of cleanliness, eco-consciousness, and self-care, with a detour through scandal, war, and toilet paper. It took a while for Americans to accept bidets as the go-to for the future of toilet hygiene, but the next item on our list took the technological world by storm. Today, touchscreen phones are so common that babies instinctively try to swipe TV screens. But it wasn't always this way. Our story starts, weirdly enough, in the 1960s, in the basement of the Royal Radar establishment in Malvern, England. Engineers were working on military radar systems when a man named Eric A. Johnson developed a primitive capacitive touchscreen, one that could detect touch by disturbance in an electric field. But this was top-secret military tech, and no one was thinking about smartphones. In fact, phones back then were still rotary dial dinosaurs. The idea that you would one day tap a screen to call someone would have sounded like sci-fi nonsense. Fast forward to the 1980s, IBM was testing ways to create more interactive computers. One of their weirdest ideas was the Touch and Tell pizza ordering system, a wall-mounted touchscreen in Pizza Hut that could let customers place orders without talking to anyone. It used resistive touchscreens, two conductive sheets that touched when pressed. This early invention was clunky, but worked. IBM shelved the idea, thinking it was a gimmick. No one knew that food tech and phone tech had just brushed fingers. The first ever touchscreen phone wasn't made by Apple, Samsung, or even Nokia. It was made by IBM. In 1992, they introduced the IBM Simon Personal Computer. It had a touchscreen, it had apps, it had a stylus, it even let you send faxes, and it was a disaster.
This is the IBM Simon Personal Communicator, also known by many as the first ever smartphone, despite the term smartphone not being coined until years later. It turns on a bit slow, so I'll fast forward through this part for you.
Weighing over a pound with a battery life of just 1 hour, the Simon looked more like a brick-shaped Game Boy than a phone. It cost $1,100 and was only available in select U.S. cities. Sales tanked. IBM pulled it off the shelves. The world wasn't ready. But looking back, it's safe to say Simon was the godfather of modern smartphones. Throughout the 1990s and the early 2000s, if you wanted to buy a touchscreen, you needed a stylus, those little plastic pens that came with PDAs and early smartphones. Companies like Palm, Windows Media, and Sony Ericsson all believed the human finger was too fat and inaccurate to use on a screen. They designed complex menus with tiny icons and expected users to poke away like pigeons tapping seeds. And then something weird happened. In 2004, Steve Jobs allegedly got furious when he saw early iPhone prototypes still used as a stylus. "God gave us 10 styluses," he snapped, wiggling his fingers. The decision to ditch the stylus led Apple engineers to develop an entirely new multi-touch capacitive screen that could detect more than one finger and revolutionize the industry. Apple wasn't technically first. In 2006, LG released the LG Prada, a sleek black touchscreen phone with no buttons and full gesture control, and it looked eerily like the iPhone. Some conspiracy theorists believe that Apple had seen early prototypes of the Prada and borrowed the design. Apple denies it, but one thing is certain: LG completely failed to market it. The Prada had no app store, no hype, and no Steve Jobs keynote. So when Apple launched the iPhone in 2007, it was game over. people waited in lines around the block for a phone with just one button and pure touchscreen magic.
Mouse, right? We solve this problem. So how are we going to take this to a mobile device? Well, what we're going to do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen. A giant screen. Now, how are we going to communicate this? We don't want to carry around a mouse, right? So what are we going to do? Oh, a stylus, right? We're going to use a stylus. No. No. Who wants a stylus? You have to get them and put them away and you lose them. Yuck. Nobody wants a stylus. So let's not use a stylus. We're going to use the best pointing device in the world. We're going to use a pointing device that we're all born with. We're born with 10 of them. We're going to use our fingers. We're going to touch this with our fingers. And we have invented a new technology called multi-touch, which is phenomenal.
Touchscreens became smarter, faster, but also more fragile. Gorilla Glass was invented to stop phones from cracking after every drop. But even that didn't stop one poor man in Finland who tried to answer a call in the sauna and accidentally melted his phone. Today, touchscreens are everywhere, on fridges, cars, mirrors, vending machines, even toilets in Japan. But inventors are already pushing weirder ideas. Some companies are even trying to get rid of screens entirely using voice, AR glasses, or brain signals instead. The touchscreen phone began as a military experiment, was nearly lost to corporate apathy, fumbled through pizza orders and stylus addiction, survived lawsuits and toilet water, and eventually became the digital extension of your hand. Our next device didn't change phone technology, but it sure made a lot of difference in the romantic life of millions around the world. Once upon a time, romance involved eye contact, handwritten letters, and the occasional mixtape. If you wanted to meet someone, you went to a party, struck up a conversation at the bus stop, or got introduced by a nosy aunt. But then came the internet, and everything changed. In the early 1990s, the internet was a clunky, noisy thing. Connecting online involved screeching dial-up tones and patience. But even then, lonely hearts were already reaching out across the wires. The first ever online dating site? Match.com.
Welcome to another Online Personals Watch CEO interview. Today I'm joined by Gary Kremen, who's the former CEO and founder of Match.com. So Gary, it's an absolute pleasure to have you today.
Thank you for your time.
So I'd like to ask you, first of all, you founded Match.com in 1995. What was your...
Actually, in 1993.
93, with electric classifieds.
That's right. Kind of the original vision was it was based on email dating service.
Gotcha. And what was your original vision at the very beginning? Tell us about the genesis of the site and what was your key inspiration?
Well, my genesis and idea was to find the right woman for myself. I had an idea that if I put all the women in the world in a database and sorted on my criteria, I'd just marry.
Launched in 1995, its founder, Gary Kremen, had a simple idea people were already using classifieds to meet dates, so why not move it online? But the bizarre part, Gary's girlfriend at the time left him for someone she met at Match.com. Turns out, the very site he had invented to helping relationships backfired almost immediately in his own life. Still, Match.com survived and even thrived, but it was just the beginning of a much stranger evolution. In the early 2000s, dating sites exploded. eHarmony launched with a promise: love through science. Founder Neil Clark Warren claimed his 29-dimension personality system could match soulmates. The problem was it was based on a no peer-reviewed research. Also strange, eHarmony didn't allow same-sex matches for over a decade. When asked why, the company basically said, "Our algorithm isn't gay enough." Meanwhile, Plenty of Fish, or POF, a site launched by a Canadian programmer named Marcus Friend, ran on one man and a laptop and at one point served over 30 million users. Friend admitted he barely worked on the site and claimed most dating problems were women's fault. If you think that was bizarre, it gets even weirder. Fast forward to 2012, the smartphone has now become our mirror, friend, and food menu. And that's where Tinder came in, the app that completely gamified attraction and romance. Swipe right if you're interested, left if you're not. No bio? No problem. Looks were the new compatibility. The origin story? a group of USC students and tech bros started Tinder under a parent company called Hatch Labs. The idea was born out of rejection and boredom. One of Tinder's original co-founders, Whitney Wolfe Herd, was later forced out after accusing another co-founder of sexual harassment. She then launched Bumble, a feminist alternative where women must message first.
That online dating can be hard whether you're a man or a woman. On Bumble, the ladies are required to make the first move. Once those women make a match, the app gives them 24 hours to reach out and start a conversation. Bumble launched at the end of 2014, gaining more than 3 million users. Women have made the first move more than 33 million times, and now Bumble is heading into the friend zone with Bumble BFF. The app uses its algorithm to help people find friendship. And first on CBS This Morning, founder and CEO Whitney Wolfe is right here at the table. Good morning.
Good morning.
Great to have
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here. So what is Bumble BFF?
So that stands for Bumble for Friends.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found is we have an incredible user base. And so many of them were using this app to find friends. And they've been requesting a feature for, hey, I'm in a relationship, but I love Bumble. I still want to be able to use it. I just moved to a new city. I would love to find girlfriends in the area to go do these things that I love. So we listened, and now we've released a new feature for both men and women.
So yes, Tinder led to a feminist revenge startup worth billions. As the mainstream dating apps became flooded, niche platforms rose like fungi in a dark, lonely forest. At this point, it became clear the internet had removed all barriers. If you had a weird romantic niche, there was probably an app for that. And if not, someone was building it in their basement. Tinder, Bumble, Grindr, and others began collecting massive amounts of personal info, age, genders, likes, sexual preferences, political beliefs, location history, and the kind of stuff governments dream about. In 2020, it was revealed that Grindr had been selling user data to third parties, including GPS locations and HIV status. Suddenly, what seemed like fun casual hookups turned into potential surveillance risks. And even more chilling, governments in certain countries began using data apps to track LGBTQ+ users, leading to arrests. What started as quirky swipes became a tool for political control. Now in the 2020s, dating is entering its strangest phase yet. AI is now helping people write opening lines, rate their profile pics, and even chat with matches on their behalf. Some companies are testing full-on AI dating coaches. Meanwhile, apps like Replica allow users to have romantic relationships with AI bots. Some people report falling in love with their virtual partner and even getting jealous when the AI becomes less available. There's also VR dating, complete with virtual kisses, virtual dates, and virtual heartbreak. Yes, people can now get dumped in simulated cafes by avatars wearing cat ears. Despite the mess, the scams, the surveillance, the rejection, and the ghosting, millions of people have found real love through dating apps. Some got married, some just had a great summer fling, some matched with their future ex and wrote an amazing breakup song. The truth is, online dating apps are bizarre, an invention born out of loneliness, code, and maybe a bit too much free time has reshaped how humanity connects. And we're still figuring it out. Relationships are one thing we can do without, and food is another object in that category of must-haves. And this next invention really took that into consideration. Before we get into what this invention is all about, we have to backtrack a little bit. To trace the air fryer's roots, we have to go to a very unexpected place, the Netherlands. In the early 2000s, Fred Vandeveer, a Dutch inventor and engineer, found himself annoyed by one universal truth: French fries at home suck. He was tired of soggy oven fries, didn't want to deal with deep fryers full of oil. So, like many good tinkerers, he set out to invent a machine that could crisp food using air instead. He called it rapid air technology. Essentially, it was a glorified convection oven, but with better airflow. Super hot air would circulate around the food at high speed, creating a crispy layer frying without the fry. Fred pitched it to Philips, the Dutch electronics giant. At first, they were skeptical, but after some tinkering, they decided to give it a shot. At the IFA Berlin trade show in 2010, Philips unveiled the air fryer to the world. People were baffled with a machine that could make fried chicken without the use of oil. And soon this technology found its way to America, land of fried Twinkies and supersized everything. When the air fryer crossed the Atlantic, it landed in a culture deeply suspicious of any product that claimed to make fried food healthy. But soon, QVC and TV shopping channels ran wild with demos. There was even a model where you could cook a whole rotisserie chicken inside a plastic pod. People were equal parts intrigued and confused. The weirder it looked, the more people wanted it. Fitness influencers praised it as the savior of clean eating. TikTok chefs began posting viral recipes for air-fried donuts, steaks, and even lasagna. As the air fryer trend exploded, copycat brands flooded the market. Some were great, others were flaming disasters, literally. There were reports of air fryers catching fire, melting countertops, or producing the smell of burning plastic that just wouldn't leave your kitchen for days. One off-brand model even exploded a frozen burrito, launching it across the room. Yet somehow, this only made the air fryer legend grow. Some companies like Ninja, Kasori, and Instant Pot began releasing advanced air fryer models with dual baskets, touchscreens, and smartphone apps. Some could even connect to Alexa, so you could tell your robot assistant to start cooking your bacon. As more people jumped on the trend, so did the backlash. Cynics claimed air fryers were just rebranded convection ovens, something that already existed for decades. Traditional chefs scoffed at the idea of air-fried steak and rolled their eyes at gadget-loving millennials. But the fan base didn't care. Online communities like Reddit's air fryer became homes to obsessed fans sharing rituals and life hacks. There were arguments about preheating, oil spritzing, and basket shaking techniques. Some people named their air fryers. Others admitted to sleeping with them on the counter like prized pets. Then came the COVID-19 pandemic. Suddenly, everyone was stuck at home, stress eating and baking banana bread. And what better way to cook comfort food than a gadget that made fake fried everything? Sales skyrocketed. Stores ran out of air fryers. Some people waited months for their back-ordered model to arrive. And when it finally did, they posted dramatic unboxing videos online. What began as a strange European experiment to make better fries turned into a global obsession. In 2022, the air fryer became the most Googled recipe term. In 2023, McDonald's tested air frying techniques in select kitchens. By 2024, even luxury brands like Le Creuset and KitchenAid released their own high-end models, making the air fryer a truly cemented part of the modern kitchen experience.
The future is here, and the winner is clear. A convenient control system lets you manage the Saki air fryer from your smartphone. Even use Alexa and Google Assistant to get cooking.
Alexa, increase air fryer to 350.
Whether it's Meatless Monday, Seafood Friday, or Steaktopia Saturday.
The air fryer is seen as a massive leap in innovation, but the next device on our list stands out as one of the laziest inventions ever made. Karaoke itself was invented in Japan in the 1970s and quickly became a global phenomenon. The premise was simple: grab a microphone, sing along to popular songs, and enjoy the often hilariously off-key results. But as more people moved into small apartments with thin walls, particularly in cities like Tokyo, New York, and Seoul, the idea of at-home karaoke became complicated. During the early 2000s, karaoke at home was limited not by technology, but by sound pollution. Singing at full volume indoors could disturb family members, roommates, and especially neighbors. Japan, being no stranger to inventive and oddly specific gadgets, began developing solutions. One of the earliest concepts was a peculiar-looking device called the Utayit voice training mask, created by the novelty gadget company Tenko. The Utayit looked like a cross between a snorkel and a muzzle. It fit over the mouth and contained sound-absorbing materials. The design allowed users to practice singing loudly while significantly reducing the volume outside the device. At first, it was marketed mainly as a vocal training tool for aspiring singers, not a full karaoke solution. While it found niche success, it wasn't widely adopted. Most people still preferred actual karaoke machines or apps. Fast forward to 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic shuts down karaoke bars worldwide. People were stuck at home, isolated and looking for ways to entertain themselves and relieve stress. With bars closed and social gatherings restricted, karaoke moved indoors, but not without problems. Suddenly, millions of people wanted to sing but had no way to do it without disturbing others. This created the perfect storm for an odd little gadget to shine. The silent karaoke mic exploded in popularity on platforms like TikTok and YouTube. Influencers and casual users posted videos of themselves singing loudly into the device, only to have complete silence on the outside. The reactions were both humorous and astonished. People were amazed that they could scream sing in their apartments at 2 a.m. without waking a soul. What was once an obscure, gimmicky invention turned into a viral product with thousands of positive reviews and tutorials emerging across social platforms. Despite its functionality, the design of the silent karaoke mic remained somewhat awkward. Many resembled large rubber mugs or soft plastic cups strapped over the mouth, evoking comparisons to muzzles or sci-fi breathing devices. Critics called it dystopian, bizarre, or antisocial. Memes compared it to Bane's mask from The Dark Knight Rises, and some labeled it as a sign of modern society's growing isolation. Yet others praised it as a brilliant adaptation, especially for people in shared living spaces or those with noise sensitivities. By 2022, silent karaoke microphones were sold globally, with companies offering sleeker, more discreet designs. Some even integrated auto-tune, pitch detection, and app syncing, turning the device into a full-featured portable studio. The invention of the silent karaoke microphone proves a strange truth about innovation. Sometimes the best ideas sound ridiculous at first. What started as an obscure vocal training gadget eventually became a tool for self-expression, privacy, and even mental health support during a global crisis. Still talking about voices? Our next device completely revolutionized conversations for good. At the start of the current millennium in the early years of the 2000s, the idea of talking to your phone or speaker and getting answers sounded like science fiction. Believe it or not, the story of voice assistants didn't start in Silicon Valley, but inside a secretive military research lab. In the early 2000s, the U.S. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, famous for creating the internet, launched a project called CALO, which stood for Cognitive Assistant That Learns and Organizes. The idea was to create a smart digital helper for military officers, something that could manage tasks, answer questions, and even learn preferences over time. CALO was part of DARPA's broader effort to make an artificial intelligence useful in warfare and intelligence operations. It was ambitious, expensive, and ahead of its time. But when the project ended in 2008, some of the researchers took the technology and spun it off into a private company. That company was called Siri Inc. Siri was originally a standalone app for iPhones. It had a robotic voice and could do basic things like send texts or find restaurants. But it wasn't until 2010 that things got strange. Apple quietly bought Siri Inc., and by 2011, they integrated it into the iPhone 4S.
Yes.
Siri actually launched at this conference, and within a matter of months, you bought them. So we take credit for that. But Siri is, and it's in your ads. At least at the moment, it's your principal way of selling the iPhone 4S, which, as you pointed out, has sold in large numbers. When it works,
new John Malkovich ad.
John Malkovich,
Freaking
Samuel L.
John.
Jackson, whatever. When it works, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
When it works really well. It's kind of like magic. But a lot of times, it actually doesn't work. And that's not what a lot of people have come to think about Apple products. It says, I can't help you with this at this moment, or misunderstands you, or it gets the thing wrong. And it's a beta.
Yeah.
So what's going on with that?
Well,
is that product up to your standards? And
customers love it.
Customers
love it. It's one of the most popular features of iPhone.
Even Apple's own engineers were shocked by how quickly the company released Siri. It was still a work in progress, buggy and incomplete, but Steve Jobs believed in it, and once it launched, it became a cultural phenomenon. Siri could tell jokes. She could sass you. People quickly began asking her weird questions just to hear the answers. What started as a military AI assistant had somehow turned into a sassy iPhone sidekick. Watching Siri's rise, Amazon panicked. They were a retail company, not a tech innovator like Apple. But Jeff Bezos saw the potential of a voice-controlled future, especially if it lived in your home and helped you buy more stuff. In secret, Amazon began developing a device internally called Project D. The idea was simple: a smart speaker that you could talk to, and it would listen, respond, and even shop for you. It took years to develop. Engineers had to invent new ways to isolate human voices from background noise, a tough challenge in acoustics. But in 2014, they released the Amazon Echo, powered by a new assistant, Alexa. Why Alexa? Because the X made it easier for the device to recognize its name.
1,000 people dedicated just to Alexa and the Echo ecosystem. We have now a big set of third-party apps, the Alexa skills that people have built using our SDK, and and there's so much more to come. It's just
People found it both magical and creepy. A speaker that always listens, that could tell jokes, play music, and order toilet paper? It was weird, but it worked, and it sold millions. And of course, Google wasn't going to sit this one out. They had the world's biggest search engine and tons of user data. But voice? That was tricky. In 2016, Google launched the Google Assistant, a more serious, data-driven alternative to Alexa. It lived inside the Google Home smart speaker and Android phones, and it quickly became known as the most intelligent of the voice assistants, able to understand context and chain multiple commands. But even Google's launch had its strange moments. At a developer conference, Google showed off a demo where the assistant called a real salon and booked an appointment, mimicking a human voice complement with ums and uhs. People were blown away and also terrified. The assistant sounded so human that the salon employee didn't realize it was a robot. This sparked ethical debates about AI pretending to be human. One of the strangest parts of the voice assistant saga was the revelation that they were always listening. In 2019, multiple reports revealed that companies like Apple, Amazon, and Google had hired contractors to listen to recordings of users' interactions, sometimes even accidental ones. People had been recorded talking about personal issues, arguments, even bathroom activities. The assistants weren't always recording, but they sometimes woke up by mistake. These accidental activations led to huge privacy debates and even lawsuits. Suddenly, what once seemed like helpful AI companions started to feel like digital spies. The bizarre story of voice assistants spans military intelligence, Silicon Valley rivalry, privacy scandals, and sci-fi come to life. We can all agree that the use of voice assistants in our everyday life has added a layer of ease to our daily activities due to their usefulness. But the same cannot be said for the next item on our list, as it has no usefulness whatsoever. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like, a literal rock attached to a USB cable, which plugs into your computer and does absolutely nothing. To understand the USB pet rock, we must first revisit its analog ancestor, the original pet rock of the 1970s. In 1975, an advertising executive named Gary Dahl came up with a satirical idea. While listening to friends complain about their pets feeding, cleaning, grooming, he jokingly suggested a perfect low-maintenance pet rock.
California. Dahl is the man who created the pet rock. An idea, he says, whose time has come.
It's been incredible. We mailed our first pet rocks to the stores October 1st, and by Christmas we'll have sold well over 1 million units. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen. But on the declining curve, we'll probably sell another 1 million or 2.
And then you'll be out of the pet rock business.
Then I'll be out of the rock business and into some other insane scheme. Or lying on a beach someplace, not caring about it.
Unlike dogs or cats, rocks didn't shed, bark, or need walks, and it also never died. To everyone's surprise, the joke caught on. Dahl packaged smooth stones in custom cardboard boxes with air holes and pet rock training manuals and began selling them for $3.95 each. The product was a media sensation. It sold over 1.5 million units in just a few months and made Dahl a millionaire. But like most fads, it faded as quickly as it rose. By the end of 1976, pet rocks were gathering dust, ironically, as real rocks often do. But decades later, as technology entered every corner of life, someone would bring the pet rock back, this time in digital disguise. Soon, USB ports had become the Swiss Army knife of computer hardware. What started as a simple data transfer connection evolved into a power source, interface, and a charging hub for nearly everything. Alongside practical devices like flash drives and external hard disks came an explosion of weird USB gadgets. The internet had entered its peak of novelty culture, and tech gadgets were becoming as much about personality as they were about utility. People began buying gadgets not just because they needed them, but because they were funny. The USB Pet Rock was introduced by online retailer ThinkGeek, a beloved website known for selling geeky tech-themed gifts and humorous novelty products. Launched around 2008, the USB Pet Rock took the classic 1970s concept and updated it for the digital age. The premise was intentionally ridiculous. It was a rock with a USB plug. You connect it to your computer and nothing happened. There was no LED light, no data transfer, no interaction, absolutely zero functionality, and that's what made it brilliant. The product page proudly declared, "It doesn't fetch, it doesn't compute, it doesn't flash, it doesn't do a damn thing. It's a rock that you plug into your USB port." The absurdity of the idea was the entire point. You might assume that no one would spend money on a useless rock with a cable. But that's where the story gets even stranger. People actually bought it, a lot of them. The USB Pet Rock became a surprise viral hit. It was gifted as a gag to coworkers, used as stocking stuffers, and given during office Secret Santa exchanges. Techies, engineers, and IT support teams bought it as a tongue-in-cheek way of mocking modern gadget culture. Some even claimed it was a metaphor for the number of useless meetings or dormant team members on their projects. A popular online review summarized it best. "This is the best USB device I've ever owned. It never crashes, doesn't need drivers, and doesn't spy on me. 5 stars." Suddenly, the USB Pet Rock became the joke that hit too close to home. While the USB Pet Rock may seem like a gag, it also sparked unexpected philosophical conversations. In a world obsessed with productivity, utility, and performance, the idea of buying something that proudly does nothing was almost rebellious. Still, speaking of pets, while the rock doesn't need much attention, other pets do, particularly those that can't move about on their own. And in a bid to help a pet of this nature cover more ground, this next inventor created our next bizarre device. In early 2007, a British metalworker named Mick Madden, age 52 and based in Huddersfield, UK, looked down at his goldfish Malcolm and Ethel swimming in ever smaller circles in their bowl. He felt sorry for them. The fish appeared bored and confined. According to him, they needed to see the outside world, even if it was just to get a bit of sunlight on a Yorkshire afternoon. Motivated by that empathy, Madden took up his welding tools and decided to build a device that would let his goldfish go for walks, literally. Using materials at hand, Madden crafted a mount for a bowl on a dolly, a small wheeled platform. This became the Goldfish Walker, allowing Malcolm and Ethel to be rolled outdoors, to the town center, or even the pub. Madden later told London's Metro newspaper, "I made this to take them out and about, and they love it." Consider how unusual this sounded, a mobile aquarium on wheels in the early 2000s. News outlets at the time soon ran with the story's mostly gentle amusement. Madden's invention seemed quirky rather than practical, and there were no plans to manufacture it. Still, the story stuck as a symbol of pet-obsessive creativity. As a standalone invention, it remained a one-off, quirky device, little more than a fun anecdote that traveled far beyond Huddersfield. Fast forward to May 2022, when in Taichung City, Taiwan, a 31-year-old do-it-yourself enthusiast and YouTuber named Jerry Huang decided to bring the concept back, but on a fully engineered level. He created a sleek, futuristic goldfish stroller, a rolling tank built from acrylic and spare parts. Unlike the simple dolly setup of Madden, Huang's version featured a transparent acrylic cylinder to give the fish a 360-degree view, a battery-powered filtration system, an air pump to oxygenate the air, and even lighting for night visibility, mounted on a wheeled chassis with a handle. Cobbled together in just a few days from scrap materials, it cost around $300 to $400. Wang explained that he sees this as more than showmanship. He believed underwater creatures deserve to explore the land world, just as pets like dogs or lizards do. Once photos and a video were posted online, Wang's invention went viral. Passerbys in Taichung performed double takes, and his fans called it awesome, crazy, and imagination-filled. Wang has a substantial following, and his followers even suggested further comfort upgrades, like shock dampers for the fish. Oddity Central and other media also picked up the story, crediting it as a standout among mobile fish tank designs. Both Madden and Wang claim their fish responded positively. Madden said Malcolm and Ethel love it. Wang felt confident his goldfish were thrilled by the experience. While no scientific studies verified the fish's emotional state, both inventors stressed their concern for fish welfare, using hardy species, maintaining filtration, and avoiding stressful experiences. Though 15 years apart, both inventions echo the same strange impulse, treating goldfish like SUVs and giving them a chance to roam freely. If pets can be given such convenience, then humans have the right to it in every part of their home. Our next inventor took this belief very seriously. The earliest mention of the baby mop as a concept dates back to 1998 in Japan. An unserious Japanese magazine published a spoof advertisement for a baby-sized outfit equipped with cleaning pads. The idea was simple. If your baby was going to crawl around on the floor all day anyway, why not make them useful? The ad was obviously a joke. The baby wore an exaggerated cleaning suit, and the copy poked fun at how modern parents were always multitasking. It was all a joke and parody until someone decided to make it real. In the early 2000s, a few knockoff versions of the baby mop appeared online, mostly from novelty shops. But it wasn't until 2012 that the baby mop got a proper marketing push, ironically, from a group of people who didn't even invent it. ThinkGeek, a US-based company known for its weird, nerdy, and satirical products, put the baby mop on their website as part of an April Fool's joke. They posted fake listings for outrageous products every year, and the baby mop was one of their finest efforts. Except this time, people wanted to buy it. ThinkGeek was bombarded with emails from curious parents and gag gift hunters asking, "Wait, is this real? Where can I order it?" The demand was so high that the company had to add a disclaimer saying it didn't actually exist yet. But the buzz had already taken off. While ThinkGeek was joking, an enterprising young American named Alex Duff, working with a company called Better Than Pants, decided to make the baby mop for real. He seen the viral images floating around and figured, why not? Using cheap microfiber cloth and custom onesies, his small team stitched together a rough prototype and began selling it online in late 2012. They set up a basic website, ran some Facebook ads, and within a month, orders started pouring in. Not just gag gift buyers, but actual parents, some laughing, others genuinely curious if it could work. In its first year, Better Than Pants sold over 10,000 units. Critics called it absurd and even unethical. Why would you make your baby clean, they cried. But Duff and others defended it as harmless fun. Some even argued it had unexpected benefits. A few parenting blogs did informal tests, and as it turns out, on certain smooth floors, the baby mop actually picked up dust. Not much, but enough to amuse. A few researchers jokingly noted it could encourage crawling by rewarding motion with cleanliness. A psychologist added that babies love sensory textures, and microfiber can feel oddly pleasant. Of course, this was mostly tongue-in-cheek science. The baby mop wasn't going to replace your Roomba, but it did get people talking and laughing. As the baby mop gained popularity in the West, the story took an even stranger turn. A Chinese company began mass-producing its own version of the suit without permission. Of course, knockoffs flooded eBay and Alibaba, some selling for under $10. The packaging often featured disturbingly happy babies and questionable slogans like "Lazy Mom's Little Helper." The original joke had now become a global product category, and no one quite knew who owned it. The concept was so ridiculous and widely copied that enforcing intellectual property was nearly impossible. One particularly surreal moment came in 2013 when the Taiwanese variety show featured a live demonstration of the baby mop. A crawling toddler decked out in a bright green mop onesie cleaned a miniature obstacle course while a live audience cheered. It was part game show, part commercial, and 100% bizarre. In the West, it was mostly viewed as a joke product or white elephant gift. In parts of Asia, it was embraced as both cute and slightly useful. Videos of babies cleaning went viral on TikTok like platforms in China and Japan. In Europe, some parenting experts denounced it as objectifying children, which only boosted its visibility. The baby mop never changed the world, it never revolutionized childcare, but it did, however, reflect a truth about modern life. We want convenience, humor, and novelty all wrapped in one. This next invention story begins in 2005 in rural western Iowa, where a curious third grader named Cullen Turner accidentally created his own toilet nightlight. Frustrated one night after making a mess in the dark bathroom, he imagined a toilet seat outfitted with border lights to guide him. So he built a motion-activated prototype tube taped around the seat that illuminated when someone approached. It became a finalist in a local invention convention and even earned a spot on Ellen DeGeneres, though judges warned it could be unsafe. Cullen's idea, simple, practical, and born from necessity, would later echo in professional designs. Now let's take a few years back to 1991 in Stanford, where engineer Brian Patry grappled with the infamous toilet seat up-down household conflict. He saw a way to turn pretty annoyance into a product. His patented gadget, this his and her nightlight, was a compact infrared motion sensor affixed under the seat. It glowed green when the seat was down and red when serving as both a navigation aid and a cheeky gender indicator. Patry built his first 100 by hand, then scaled up production. It garnered media buzz and around 10,000 units sold, part practical nightlight, part social commentary on domestic life. Surprisingly, patent records show toilet lights existed even earlier. Inventors filed for illuminated commode devices as far back as the 1950s to the 1990s, including patents for lights attached to seats and bowls, meant either to aid visibility or as odd accessories. But these early patents never became retail products. Most remained footnotes until low-cost LEDs and motion sensors made production practical. The modern chapter of this bizarre story begins with Matt Alexander, a student in Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. In late 2014, after one too many midnight bathroom trips jolting him awake with bright lights, he joked about installing a light-up floor mat, until his brother-in-law, Mike Cannelly, suggested attaching a light directly to the toilet bowl instead. Alexander loved it. Within weeks, they had a working prototype. They launched a Kickstarter, raising nearly $96,000 and gathering thousands of backers. By August 2015, they had produced units under the brand Unavailable, a motion-activated LED ring that clips onto the underside of the seat. When someone enters the bathroom at night, it glows up to 8 color modes and softly lights the toilet area. Then came Shark Tank in March 2016, presenting before Kevin O'Leary and others. Alexander and Cannelly won a $100,000 investment for 25% of their company. Their invention soon got shelf space at Bed Bath & Beyond and other retailers. Within months, press outlets described it as a fun, helpful solution for parents training toddlers, seniors with low light vision, and anyone who had preferred not to awaken fully during the night. Lots of people ask the question, what makes Unavailable so strange yet brilliant? The fact is, it uses a motion sensor and ambient light sensors, so it only lights up in the dark and when someone approaches. A clip attached securely to nearly any toilet bowl behind the seat. Inside sits a small LED light bar, diffused to softly illuminate the rim and bowl from within. It's powered by batteries, so no wiring needed. Multiple color options in dimmer settings make it feel playful and not clinical. All this transforms a mundane object like a toilet into a glowing beacon for midnight users. Reactions range from mockery to appreciation. In a deeply ironic way, toilet LED lights reflect our obsession with light and visibility, even in the most mundane human rituals. They turn a private function into a mini spectacle and remind us that the boundaries between necessity and absurdity can actually be very blurry. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Be sure to leave your favorite bizarre invention in the comments. And please like and subscribe to stay updated for more videos. I'm Mickey V. Have a great day.